the nation's commercial capital. This is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Kayode Okikiolu.
Tonight, House of Representatives summons Finance Minister and 2 others to give reasons why the Office of the Auditor General is being undermined. The House also rejected the budget for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs over alleged infractions. Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki faults the timing of the naira redesign policy, insists the move is purely political. Victims of last Friday's kidnapping along the Lagos-Ibadan expressway recount their experience in the hands of their captors as another group backs Peter Obi for president.
On business news tonight, the African Investment Forum begins physical meeting. That's the first since 2019.
On sports news tonight, federal government approves the national sports industry policy submitted to it by the Ministry of Youth and Sports.
And from Abuja, the nation's capital, Federal Executive Council approves variation order in respect of repair works on the East-West Road project affected during the recent flood occurrences in the Niger Delta.
And in international news from London, North and South Korea have fired a number of missiles into waters near each other's coasts in a marked escalation of hostilities.
We begin from the National Assembly, where the House of Representatives Committee on Public Accounts is summoning the Minister of Finance, the Director General of the Budget Office, and the Accountant General of the Federation to explain why the Office of the Auditor General is being undermined. The chairman of the committee, Mr. Oluwole Oke, stated this while rejecting the 2023 budget proposal of the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation. Our correspondent Terry Kumi reports that the budget for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was also rejected over alleged infractions.
Budget defense sessions continue in the House of Representatives as the Auditor General defends his budget before the Committee on Public Accounts. Lawmakers are shocked at what they described as a meager sum proposed for the Office of the Auditor General in the 2023 appropriation bill.
Why would you allocate several billions to auxiliary institutions, and you are giving 62 million naira to the Office of Auditor General of the Federation to fund capital? We reject this budget. This budget cannot work.
The committee demands answers and issues summons to those involved in the budgeting process.
The Minister for Finance, the DG Budget, the Accountant General of the Federation, the 3 of them should cause a presence before this committee to come and tell Nigerians why they are undermining the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation. Why the office has not been staffed? Why they have not been given the tools required to work to wage corruption in the land?
Meanwhile, in another room, the Foreign Affairs Committee declines to consider the budget of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for violating the Appropriation Act.
Missions and embassies have been empowered to constitute their tender board for the purpose of the procurements they need to make. We have called the attention of the Minister to this act, but he has continued to direct the missions not to obey this law in spite of receiving about 4 letters on the issue. The Minister has continued to authorize the spending of monies generated through administrative charges at the missions without being appropriated by the National Assembly. The committee has resolved as follows: that it will not consider the present 2023 appropriation proposal of the ministry until it does the following. 1. Direct all missions to abide by Section 10 of the 2022 Appropriation Act as amended.
We're not flouting it in any way, and I have certainly never sent or signed anything to any mission to tell them to disregard those requirements.
Even if you are not aware, you are the head, you should be aware today that telex have been sent to embassies to disrespect and disregard the law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The committee states that it will, however, review the 2022 budget of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and re-invite the minister if need be. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
And more reactions are still trailing the announcement by the central bank to redesign some denomination of the nation's currency. Well, the latest is coming from the governor of Edo State, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, who believes the decision is a move by the ruling All Progressives Congress APC to stifle the opposition ahead of next year's general elections. Mr. Obaseki is of the opinion that currency redesigning at this critical period in the country cannot be the solution to any economic crisis. He was speaking at the Edo PDP campaign office in Benin City, the state capital, where he inaugurated the Edo PDP Women Campaign Group.
Honor and privilege. I am an economist. I can tell you categorically that this policy by the federal government, by the Central Bank of Nigeria, has no basis in economics. There is no reason to. This is purely political. When you decide to change your currency in such a roughshod manner, 30 days before an election, all you can adduce is that this is purely political. There's nothing urgent about our currency, changing our currency today. There's no urgency. The urgency for us is how to get food for our citizens so that we can remove the starvation in the land. The urgency is how to maintain discipline in our monetary policy so that we can manage our foreign exchange rate, because we are so import dependent. But they think they are smart. They wanted to be politicians. They don't know how to be politicians. And they're trying to use the tools in their office to manage the currency so that they can sway money to the people they want to before the elections. They can only try. They can only try, but they will not succeed. Because there's God above. God is seeing how people are suffering. God knows why he put us in this country. He knows why he has given us the kind of land and resources he has given us. We cannot allow the kind of people managing this country to continue managing it. Because if we allow them to, they will destroy our country.
Political economist Professor Patutomi and a coalition of support groups across the country under the aegis of the Big Tent have thrown their weight behind the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi. Addressing newsmen in Abuja, Professor Tomi says it is unfortunate that the APC did not implement what he and his team put together as a party's manifesto when it was formed. He, however, says the Labour Party candidate will soon release his manifesto, which he says will meet the aspiration of Nigerians.
One day we found that Peter Obi had decided that the PDP wasn't the vehicle, and suddenly he was available as part of our framework. And he became the candidate of the Labour Party. And all of us, following the same general agreements we had in this room, that what we require is a collegial approach. No one man knows it all. Yes. No one man loves anybody more than the other. But a collection of patriotic leaders who are capable can hold each other accountable to the Nigerian people to give Nigeria a new start, a new beginning. It is that new start and new beginning that this initiative has fallen into. When people talk about campaign, they talk about Labour Party. Labour Party is just a part of the Big Tent. The first briefing which the candidate was asked to provide his own mantra or where things should go in took place in my house. So it's not in fact, if you want me to be even more cruel, on the same table where we wrote the APC constitution, in my house, the APC manifesto. And with that brief, work continued. But the candidate had been drawing from, if you listen to his presentation at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, he spoke to 7 pillars. And those 7 pillars are in that manifesto, and will be there at the end.
Staying with the elections, the All Progressives Congress presidential candidate, Bola Tinubu, is confident that his party will win the 2023 presidential election. Well, the APC flag bearer, who was speaking during a stakeholders meeting at the party's secretariat in Lagos, asked the party supporters to remain united and work to ensure the party's victory in the elections.
Members of the All Progressives Congress in Lagos State converge on the party secretariats on Acme Road to campaign for their presidential and governorship candidates. The state governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and his deputy, Kadri Hamzat, also joined the crowd. Shortly after, the APC presidential candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, makes his way to the gathering to seek the support of the party members. Just before he makes his speech, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu endorses him and asks the people to ensure that APC wins the election at the federal and state level.
What we have done here today will be historic, will be something that will go into the annals of history, that Asiwaju came here, we also anointed him, and by the grace of God Almighty Allah, Almighty God is going to become the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
And the APC flag bearer expresses confidence on his chances at the polls.
Whether it's rainy or sunny or blazing hot, don't give up. It's just one day.
Elsewhere in Lagos, the vice presidential candidates met with the northerners in the Alabarago area of Lagos, saying it is time for them to give back to a man who has always stood for the people's interest.
For those of us from the north, this is payback time. In 4 electoral cycles, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu supported northern Nigerian candidates for the presidency of Nigeria.
As political parties campaign for their candidates, the people are left to decide who wins the presidential seat in the forthcoming elections.
It's a similar showing for supporters of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, who staged a rally in Warri, Delta State to show support for the presidential candidate of the party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, and his running mate, and the governor of Delta State, Ifeanyi Okowa, as well as the PDP governorship candidate, Mr. Sheriff Oborewori. The party faithfuls described the Atiku Abubakar Okowa ticket as one which is capable of turning around the nation's fortunes and asked Nigerians to give the party a chance.
It's a season of political campaigns, with the flag of the People's Democratic Party flying high along major roads in Warri, Delta State. The campaign causes gridlock along the roads as supporters of the PDP storm the streets in solidarity walk to show their support for the party's presidential candidate, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, his running mate, Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa, and the state's governorship candidate. The group displayed banners with different messages in support of their candidates, all marched on the airport road and terminating at the Sisi road, all within the Warri South local government area of the state, where they reiterate their support for their candidates.
If you talk about infrastructure and development, he has done well. Human capital development, he has done well. Urbanization, he has done well. In the educational sector, he has done well. And we cannot also not talk about the agricultural revolution. He has also constructed massive roads in Delta, which has earned him the name the road master.
You and I know that we are tired of this system of APC government. So we all have agreed as a youth to rescue this Nigeria, to join Atiku Okowa to rescue this nation from 2023.
The youth leaders believe everyone must be on board to rescue Nigeria from the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC.
When you check back 2015, you can be a good judge to say where we are now, it is even better we return back to the 2015 when the PDP are on board. And if you go around the state, it is evidently clear that Delta understand that Atiku Abubakar, Okowa, His Excellency Dr. Ifeanyi Ato Okowa has the democratic credential to return Nigerian back to the glory of the hood.
Many of the supporters insist the 2023 general elections will not be an exception, as they continue to woo their Delta residents to support the party to win all elective offices in the forthcoming polls.
Well, in part two, after the break, victims of the Lagos-Ibadan kidnapping recount their ordeal in captivity as they call for improved security measures on the routes. That's in a moment. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, live on Channels Television. A reminder of our main stories. House of Representatives summons Finance Minister and two others to give reasons why the Office of the Auditor General is being undermined. The House also rejected the budget for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs over alleged infractions. Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki faults timing of the naira redesign policy, insists move is purely political. And victims of last Friday's kidnapping along Lagos-Ibadan Expressway recount their experience in the hands of their captors. And foreign saying both sides in Ethiopia's civil war agreed to halt their two-year conflict after reaching a deal with the African Union describes as a new dawn. Tonight, we bring you the inside story of the shocking kidnapping incident on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway last Friday, from the victims' ordeal to their family members who had to bear the brunt of negotiating their release from their captors. It's an attack that has raised questions about the effectiveness of the security arrangement on the 120-kilometer road, which the federal government prides as one of its legacy projects.
Going to be good. They told us to lie down, to face the ground. They didn't give us anything to eat for that 3 days. They didn't give us, even themselves, they were even eating cassava, raw cassava.
23-year-old victim of Friday's kidnapping on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway recounting her experience on one of the busiest roads in West Africa. Her experience gives her doubts about the nation's security architecture.
There's no security in Nigeria because these people, they were putting on soldier uniform and police officer uniform. We even thought it was a checkpoint. Maybe they just want to check our car, we should be going. Security in Nigeria is 0%. The government should just please help us, we youth.
What was meant to be a one-hour journey to Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, for a wedding ceremony with her friend, both students of the Moshood Abiola Polytechnic in Ogun State, turned into 3 days of traumatic experience. Moving through the forests at the mercy of men they say wore police and military uniforms. But what's even more shocking is the brazen manner with which the kidnapping was executed.
The time where I give my daughter Then follow me reach road, Ibadan Express Road, front of Communion University. We dey outside there, near Express. Everybody they pass there, road safety they pass, police pass, anybody pass, they see us, nobody challenge say, what did they do there? Nobody challenge say, yes, people here, what's happening here? Nobody challenge us.
The Ogun State Police has a different side to the story.
As soon as we got the information, we have to liaise with our counterpart in Oyo State, and the two commands swung into action to ensure the safety rescue of those involved. And we thank God that those people have regained their freedom, and that does not foreclose the fact that we are still on the trail of those who perpetrated that dastardly act.
Former Deputy Vice-Chancellor of the University of Ibadan, Professor Adigun Agbaje, is another victim of the kidnap. He's still receiving care after the ordeal, but his son, who negotiated his release, recounts the experience.
They apologized and asked me to understand, and I expressed my gratitude and told them, in fact, they asked me to apologize to the family. I said I would. The government as a whole needs to think about how to keep us secure with some basic things, cutting of this forest overgrowths, maybe give us visibility of a few kilometers to the left and to the right, so at least you can see someone running towards you if need be.
While the authorities say all the victims have been released, questions abound as to why an area close to the Gambari forest, which is government-owned, is being used to facilitate kidnapping for ransom.
For now, numbers of clearance, what the military will call clearance operations, that had been carried out. But, the security elements that get involved in criminal activities, I'd mentioned it's like a cat and mouse. As we're taking this step, they're also looking for another way, including, using the grassroots collaborators.
You cannot do it alone. We have adjoining states. Kwara is there, Ogun is there. From these two main states, we have a lot of problems.
There was a similar attack in the Onigari area of the Lagos-Ibadan expressway in January this year, in which road users were shot at and kidnapped. And this latest one is shocking, to say the least, for those who ply that route regularly. For more on the news at 10, let's head over to our Abuja studio, where Markway Ogun Yusuf is sitting by for more. Hello, Markway.
Indeed, I'm sitting. Hello, Coyote. The outcome of the Federal Executive Council meeting leads our stories tonight, as the federal government has approved the variation order for repair works on the East-West Road project affected during the recent flooding in the Niger Delta. The approval increases the total contract sum for the outstanding sections from Warri to Port Harcourt, Eket, Oron, including Oron-Eket bypass, from 246 billion naira to 506 billion naira. Our State House correspondent Gloria Umezioke reports.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, again presides over the Federal Executive Council meeting in the absence of the President. A minute silence first in honor of the nation's former Minister of Aviation, Chief Mbazulike Amechi, who died on the 1st of November. The challenge of flooding and the manifest impact is again central at this briefing, as the Ministry of Works and Housing gets approval from FEC.
We got approval for the variation order in respect of the repair works on the East-West Road project affected during the recent flooding occurrences in the Niger Delta. Sections 1 to 4 from Warri to Port Harcourt, Eket, Oron, including Oron-Eket bypass, in the sum of 260 billion, thereby increasing the total contract sum for the outstanding sections 1 to 4 of the East-West Road projects from the sum of formerly of 246 billion now to 506 billion.
In the wake of the flooding, the Minister of Agriculture debunks talks of an acute food shortage next year.
We have in place an intensive plan for dry season farming. We have gotten funding from the African Development Bank. We have some money also in our own provision. Also, we are intensifying farming in areas that have no conflict to make up for those areas that we are getting little or no access.
Among these efforts, the Science, Technology and Innovation Minister disclosed that pencil manufacturing is now well underway.
The latest or the update I can give you is that, yes, already pencils have been manufactured in that place, to the best of my knowledge. My colleague, the Minister of State, visited about a month ago, and the report he brought back, he physically visited the place, and the report is that, yes, the process of manufacturing of pencils is on as we speak.
The ministry also gets a 3.5 billion naira approval from the council to secure partnership on the upgrade, equipping, operating and marketing of Space Museum and Planetarium. From the Presidential Villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Africa Investment Forum begins first physical meeting since the start of COVID-19 pandemic in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. That's on Business News. Do join us again. And that's all from Abuja. It's back now to you, Coyote.
Well, thanks a lot, Markway. Also some company news now. Entrepreneurs in Nigeria are receiving some boost as the Bank of Industry and the Lagos Business School trains and graduates some entrepreneurs with the sole aim of improving their organizational activities. At the graduation ceremony, which took place at the Lagos Business School, the managing director of the bank, Mr. Lukayode, stated that the Bank of Industry is poised to ensure that entrepreneurs and business owners in Nigeria have all necessary aid to enable their organizations succeed.
Advancing the course for entrepreneurs is one of the mandates for the Bank of Industry. It is in line with this that it is partnering with the Lagos Business School's Entrepreneurial Development Center to create a course which will teach entrepreneurs in Nigeria to help organizations perform at their maximum while making mild profit.
Indeed, in the last couple of years, the school's strategic goals have emphasized an increase in entrepreneurial outcomes based on the knowledge that today's society needs more job creators than job seekers. I firmly believe that today's event is a manifestation of our mission, that our mission is being achieved at Lagos Business School.
For the Bank of Industry, partnerships of this nature will bring it closer to its mandate of helping businesses achieve their potential.
At the Bank of Industry, we believe that there can be no inclusive growth and sustainable development in Nigeria if we do not deliberately and proactively ensure that existing challenges that hold back a majority of our entrepreneurs from reaching their full potentials are addressed. Therefore, we are always excited in developing strategic partnerships with like-minded institutions such as Lagos Business School.
The institution also reiterates the importance of collaboration in the education of entrepreneurs as participants share their views on lessons learned.
We're lighting a candle by empowering each and every one of you to be successful and sustainable, because as you grow, you will employ other people, empower them with skills, and create more wealth, leading to shared prosperity and national transformation.
Lagos Business School and BOI has been really grateful, has been an impactful journey for us. Over here, we have learned that we can make so much money by having people in mind.
There will also be apprenticeship and business incubation opportunities to ensure participants get the mentoring support they need to overcome challenges as they grow.
Well, the MD CEO of the Nigeria Ports Authority, Mr. Mohammed Bello Koko, has commissioned the Diamond Star Export Processing Terminal located at Lily Pond, Ijara, Papa in Lagos, southwest Nigeria. Well, Diamond Star Port and Terminals is described as the central pre-gate for processing all export containers ingressing Lagos ports through roads and railway. At the commissioning ceremony, Mr. Bello Koko says the movement of export boxes to Tinkan Island Port will be from the Diamond Star Hemodynamics Terminal, Okota, while agro-allied export boxes arrive in the port from Lagos and Ogun States will also be from the terminal.
It's a new dawn in non-oil exportation in the country as Diamond Star Port and Terminal Limited is bringing ease to export business in Nigeria by improving on the delivery of export cargoes and boxes to vessels that will deliver them out of the country in a prompt and faster manner. This good news has brought together the top officials of the Nigeria Ports Authority, the Nigeria Customs Service, and the management team of Diamond Star Ports and Terminal Limited.
Diamond Star Port and Terminal is a fully integrated terminal logistics company with core competence in port and terminal operations, barge operations, cargo handling services, outport terminal operations, warehouse housing services, and all other related ports and cargo handling services.
High point of the occasion is the commissioning of the export processing terminal and a tour of the facilities by the MD CEO of the Nigeria Ports Authority, Mr. Mohammed Bello Koko.
What I see here is quite commendable, really. This is not what it was a few months ago. And the company, that's Diamond Star, have shown that they have capacity and they are really serious business persons. And we like seeing that in Nigerians. It's a Nigerian company. You can see they have paved the area, they have provided accommodation for customs and other government agencies, and they are online and ready to go.
The company says it is ready for the task ahead.
We have put every structure in place to make this happen. As you can see today, the terminal is ready to kick off. All our operations, we have tried as much as possible to make some online so that they can, from their offices, just log on to our portal, upload the container details, and we call them up through the ETO call-up system, and they can just drive down here, do their examination. All the agencies are seated here, the customs, the other government agencies that will do the inspection, they are already here.
Diamond Star Port and Terminal Limited will officially receive its license from the Nigerian Ports Authority on November the 3rd.
For more business stories on the news at 10, here's Willie Bonk.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks, Kayode. The Africa Investment Forum, AIF, has begun in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, and that's the first physical meeting since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. The continent's premier investment marketplace, which helps to connect investors to Africa, opened today and will run until November the 4th. In a statement released today, the president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, says that at a virtual event held in March this year, the AIF secured $15.6 billion in investment interest for the construction of the Lagos-Ibadan highway. The forum, which commenced in 2018, has helped to mobilize $110 billion in investment interest to Africa and is expected to showcase billions of dollars in investment-ready transactions to participants from around the world. Now, the world's second-largest payment processing corporation, MasterCard, says Africa's domestic e-payments market revenue is expected to grow by 20% to hit $40 billion by 2025. According to the report, Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa are among the countries leading the transition to digital payments. It further states that while cash dominates, newer e-payment solutions by banks and non-bank companies are likely to grow. The fintech sector accounted for 27% of the record high number of deals closed and 61% of $2.7 billion that was raised in Africa in 2021. Now, Nigeria's headline Purchasing Managers Index, PMI, fell marginally by 1 basis point to 53.6 in October from 53.7 recorded in September. This little change indicates a solid improvement in the health of the country's private sector. A key driver of this growth was a sharp rise in new orders following reports of favorable and improving market conditions. In turn, firms raised their output levels, and for the 4th month in a row, as purchasing activity increased at an accelerated pace. At the same time, the backlogs increased for the 2nd month in a row, with sustained accumulation of outstanding business suggesting that hiring activity could continue in the months ahead. Meanwhile, price pressures showed further signs of abating, with the overall rate of input cost inflation recording the weakest in 3 months. Pre-production inventories also rose significantly, with growth rates hitting a 3-month high. Also, supply chain performance improved, with lead times now shortening in each month for the last 5 years. While firms maintain an optimistic view towards output in the next 12 months, the degree of positivity remains low. Now let's head to the equities market, where stocks made a strong rebound in today's trading session, recouping some of the losses recorded so far. Laddie Williams tells us more.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, 2nd trading day of November, not looking bad at all. And we look at the all-share index there, it's up 1.23%. Big move there by the bull, 44,283 points. Market cap, 24.119 trillion naira. Let's look at the activity chart there. It's all red. 155 million units of stocks traded, valued at 1.52 billion naira. We're seeing less buying pressure compared to yesterday. Let's look at the top gainers there. We see Dangote Cement there. That's the one that's pulling the market up today, up 8.84%. We see Chams up 4.35%, and Wapik there up 2.85%. Flip over to the losers counter there. MRS stopping that counter down 9.65%. So not a bad move by the bull today. Hopefully, this is not a dead cat bounce. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Laddie Williams. This is back to you.
Thanks, Laddie. We do hope it's not a dead cat bounce. So now let's check out how other major equities around the world performed in today's trading session. And that's it on Business News. Now it's back to Coyote for the rest of the news.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Well, thanks, Will. Let's now bring you more details on what transpired in Bayelsa State, where former President Goodluck Jonathan assured residents of the state that the federal government's intervention in the flood crisis in the state will soon be felt.
The Bayelsa State Ecumenical Center in Yenagoa comes alive as Bayelsans gather to thank God at this year's annual Thanksgiving ceremony. Even the state governor showcases his dancing skills in appreciation to God Almighty. Remarkably, this year's ceremony is quite a different experience, as Bayelsa is still grappling with the devastation it has suffered as a result of the flood.
A terrible, devastating flood situation we saw. We heard of it, we read about it, but it was nothing compared to what we saw as we were landing from the air. It was absolutely unbelievable. But we want you to know that in the midst of trouble, in the midst of the waters, Jehovah is with us.
The Bayelsa State Elders Forum condemned the federal government's response over the flood in Bayelsa.
The devastation caused by the flood this year is unprecedented. And it is the height of insensitivity on the part of the federal government and its agencies, all of them, to think that the business of restoring this state and this environment should be left to the hands of our government alone.
Governor Doye also spoke on the flood situation.
As I traversed the flooded state of Bayelsa, there was one thing that was very instructive. And all of us, from the deputy governor to the rest of the team that went with me, we saw it. Every community in Bayelsa is an IDP camp.
Former President Goodluck Jonathan, while addressing the audience, assured them that the federal government will come to the aid of the state very soon.
This year's flood is more devastating to all of us, and I agree that people should show interest. I'm not going to speak for the federal government because I'm not an officer of the federal government, but I believe help will come. I say I believe in the sense that I've discussed with the president and I've discussed with the vice president the need to help. I believe help will come. And they promised me, so I'll continue to remind them.
In spite of the heavy flooding in Bayelsa, worshippers here now look forward to a time when it finally recedes in the coming weeks.
Well, to legal matters now from outside our shores. The plea and trial preparation hearing for former Deputy Senate President Ekweremadu and his wife Beatrice over organ trafficking charges in the United Kingdom is set to hold on November the 7th following its postponement on Monday. Mrs. Ekweremadu was released in July on bail while her husband remains in custody. A correspondent in London, Teniola Itayo, has more on the case ahead of the pre-trial hearing on Monday.
Former Deputy Senate President Ekweremadu has now spent over 4 months in custody in Wandsworth Prison in the United Kingdom. The 60-year-old and his wife Beatrice Ekweremadu were arrested on the 23rd of June. They've been charged with conspiring to traffic a person for organ harvesting in violation of the Modern Slavery Act 2015. A third individual, Obina Obeta, who is a practicing medical doctor in London, has also been charged with plotting with the Ekweremadus to traffic a man into the UK to harvest a kidney for the couple's daughter, Sonia. In July, Mrs. Ekweremadu was granted bail on stringent conditions, but the senator was denied bail because he was said to be a flight risk. Some have raised concern over the continued detention of Mr. Ekweremadu, pending the trial, which will commence fully on May the 2nd, 2023.
This man is still in prison. He's still in detention, in whatever way you can say it. I believe this is a way we all believe in. We're a member of the Commonwealth, and we know presumption of innocence. I think he still has that, even despite that he's in the United Kingdom. Then the problem is this: why is it there? Though the case, what is being charged for, is bailable, though I realize that it has to do with the discretion of the court.
At the last court sitting on August the 4th, the Central Criminal Court in the UK adjourned the case to hear pre-trial applications on Monday, October the 31st. However, the hearing this week was postponed due to the non-availability of the couple's daughter, Sonia Ekweremadu, whose case was established according to reports. A new date has been set for November the 7th. Under the United Kingdom's Modern Slavery Act 2015, human trafficking is punishable with a maximum sentence of life imprisonment upon conviction. Teniola Oyetayo, Channels Television, London.
Well, the African Union has described as a new dawn a deal reached in Ethiopia's civil war as both sides agreed to end hostilities. Simon Pusey has more stories in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5.
North and South Korea have fired a number of missiles into waters near each other's coasts in a marked escalation of hostilities. The North launched its most missiles in a single day, at least 23, including one that landed less than 60 kilometers off the south city of Sokcho. Seoul responded with warplanes firing 3 air-to-ground missiles over the disputed maritime demarcation line. The North says the launches are in response to large-scale military exercises currently being held by South Korea and the United States, which it calls aggressive and provocative. On Tuesday, Pyongyang warned they would pay what it called the most horrible price in history if they continued their drills, seen as a veiled threat to use nuclear weapons. Days after Russia suspended support for grain exports through the Black Sea, it has agreed with Turkey to restart its participation in the agreement. Russia accused Ukraine on Saturday of using a safety corridor for grain ships to attack its fleet in Crimea. However, the UN, Turkey and Ukraine continued sending ships even after Russia halted its support for the deal. Here, the Turkish president receiving the news while speaking in parliament that Russia had agreed to continue to participate in the agreement. Recep Tayyip Erdogan said Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu had informed his Turkish counterpart that the deal will resume. The former Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is on the brink of a dramatic comeback after results showed he was on course to win a majority in parliament. With 84% of votes from the general election counted, Mr. Netanyahu's bloc is set to win 65 out of 120 seats. We are close to a big victory, he told jubilant supporters in Jerusalem. However, he will be dependent on the support of the ultra-nationalist religious Zionism party, which has gained notoriety for using anti-Arab rhetoric and advocating the deportation of disloyal Arab politicians or civilians. Meanwhile, Denmark's centre-left has secured the most votes in a general election, widely seen as a confidence vote in the country's leader. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen's red bloc of parties had secured the required 90 seats to form a government. Her Social Democrats party unexpectedly gained 2 seats and secured its best result in 2 decades. But she wants to form a broader coalition and has handed in the government's resignation to the Queen. The UK Prime Minister has reversed an earlier decision not to go to the COP27 climate summit in Egypt.
The climate crisis.
It's climate change.
Green, renewable energy.
From financing the transition to clean energy to protecting the world's forests and future-proofing its cities, there's a lot to discuss when the COP27 summit kicks off in Egypt's Sharm el-Sheikh. Rishi Sunak had said he was too busy preparing for the November budget to attend the event, which opens on Sunday. But this had been widely criticised by climate campaigners and opposition parties, and he now says he will now attend. And Britain's Prince William has attended the 10th annual Tusk Conservation Awards. The Prince of Wales, who is a patron of Tusk and helped to launch the awards in 2013, presented Nedi Mulimo with the Tusk Wildlife Ranger Award and Migek Goncalves with the Tusk Award for Conservation in Africa. During the ceremony held at Hampton Court Palace, William underlined the importance of conservation work in Africa among turbulent times and how critical it is to protect the world we live in for future generations.
We must remain focused on investing in nature and the environment, protecting it for future generations. We must not pass on the baton to our children and grandchildren, apologising for our lack of collective action. Instead, we must do all we can to support those who support our natural world, often at great risk to themselves.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Let's now take a look at some stories from the world of sports. The Federal Executive Council has approved the National Sports Industry Policy 2022 to 2026, a new policy intended to totally transform the sports industry into a revenue-generating industry for both the public and commercial sectors. The Minister of Sports and Youth Development, Mr. Sunday Dare, stated that the approval would cover incentives for private investors and sports development, including a proposed tax and fiscal incentive needed to drive sports as a business and also to attract the much-needed investment from the private sector. And Albert Hillary scored a brace as Plateau United moved closer to securing a place in the money-spinning group stage of the CAF Confederations Cup, courtesy of a 4-1 win against Libyan club Al Akdar. Fidelis Ilechiku's side were in control from start to finish and take a healthy lead into the reverse fixture. Elsewhere, Rivers United defeated Libya's Al Nassr Benghazi 5-0 at the Adoke Amesimaka Stadium in Port Harcourt. And that's it on sports news. It's back to Kaede. I'm Victor Matthias. Thank you for watching.
And the main news again. The House of Representatives today summoned the Finance Minister Zainab Ahmed, the Director General of the Budget Office, and the Accountant General of the Federation to give reasons why the Office of the Auditor General has been undermined. And that's the news at 10 for tonight, everyone. Thank you for watching. I'm Kaede Okikile. Good night.